Hi there, welcome back, or welcome for the very first time. You're safe now. This is your time to rest. Let go of your day. Let your breath slow down and your thoughts float gently away. Tonight I'll be reading you a fairy tale, an old story wrapped in moonlight and carried on a quiet breeze just for you. So snuggle in, get cozy, and let the soft rhythm of the story guide you into dreams. Let's begin. Story 7. The Great Red Dragon of Wales. Every old country that has won fame in history and built up a civilization of its own has a national flower. Besides this, some living creature, bird or beast, or it may be a fish on its flag. In places of honour it stands as the emblem of the nation, that is, of the people apart from the land they live on. Besides flag and symbol, it has a motto. That of Wales is, "Awake, it is light." Now, because the glorious stories of Wales, Scotland and Ireland have been nearly lost in that of the mighty England, men have, at times, almost forgotten about the leek, the thistle and the shamrock, which stand for the other 3 divisions of the British Isles. Yet each of these people has a history as noble as that of which the rose and the lion are emblems. Each has also a patron saint and symbolizer. So we have St. George, St. David, St. Andrew and St. Patrick, all of them white-souled heroes. On the Union flag or standard of the United Kingdom we see their crosses. The Lion of England, the Harp of Ireland, the Thistle of Scotland and the Red Dragon of Wales represent the 4 people in the British Isles, each with its own speech, traditions and emblems, yet all in unity and in loyalty, none excelling the Welsh, whose symbol is the red dragon. In classic phrase, we talk of Albion, Scotia, Cymru and Hibernia. But why red? Almost all the other dragons in the world are white or yellow, green or purple, blue or pink. Why a fiery red colour like that of Mars? Born on the banner of the Welsh archers who in old days won the battles of Crecy and Agincourt, and now seen on the crests of the town halls and city flags, in heraldry and in art, the red dragon is as rampant as when King Arthur sat with his knights at the Round Table. The red dragon has 4 3-toed claws, a long barbed tongue, and a tail ending like an arrowhead. With its wide wings unfolded, it guards those ancient liberties which neither Saxon nor Norman nor German, nor kings on the throne, whether foolish or wise, have ever been able to take away. No people on earth combine so handsomely loyal freedom and the larger patriotism, or hold in pure loyalty to the union of hearts and hands in the British Empire, which the sovereign represents, as do the Welsh. The Welsh are the oldest of the British peoples. They preserve the language of the Druids, bards and chiefs of the primeval ages, which go back and far beyond any royal line in Europe, while most of their fairy tales are pre-ancient and beyond the dating. Why the Cymric dragon is red is thus told from times beyond human record. In those early days, after the Romans in the south had left the island, and the Cymric king, Vortigern, was hard pressed by the Picts and the Scots of the north. To his aid, he invited over from beyond the North Sea, or German Ocean, the tribes called the Long Knives, or Saxons, to help him. But once on the big island, these friends became enemies and would not go back. They wanted to possess all Britain. Vortigern thought this was treachery. Knowing that the Long Knives would soon attack him, he called his 12 wise men together for their advice. With one voice, they advised him to retreat westward, behind the mountains, into Cymru. There he must build a strong fortress, and there defy his enemies. So the Saxons, who were Germans, thought they had driven the Cymru beyond the western borders of the country, which was later called England, and into what they named the foreign or Welsh parts. Centuries afterwards, this land received the name of Wales. People in Europe spoke of Galatians, Wallachans, Belgians, Walloons, Alsatians, and others as Welsh. They called the new fruit imported from Asia walnuts because the name Wales and Welsh were unheard of until after the 5th century. The place chosen for the fortified city of the Cymru was among the mountains. From all over his realm the king sent for masons and carpenters and collected materials for building. Then a solemn invocation was made to the gods by the Druid priests. These grand-looking old men were robed in white, with long snowy beards falling over their breasts, and they had milk-white oxen drawing their chariot. With a silver knife they cut the mistletoe from the tree branch, hailing it as a sign of favour from the gods. Then, with harp, music, and song, they dedicated the spot as a stronghold of the Cymric nation. Then the king set the diggers to work. He promised a rich reward to those men of the pick and shovel who should dig the fastest and throw up the most dirt, so that the masons could, at the earliest moment, begin their part of the work. But it all turned out differently from what the king expected. Some dragon, or powerful being underground, must have been offended by this invasion of his domain, for the next morning they saw that everything in the form of stone, timber, iron, or tools had disappeared during the night. It looked as if an earthquake had swallowed them all up. Both king and seers, priests and bards, were greatly puzzled at this. However, not being able to account for it, and the Saxons likely to march on them at any time, the sovereign set the diggers at work and again collected more wood and stone. This time even the women helped, not only to cook the food, but to drag the logs and stones. They were even ready to cut off their beautiful long hair to make ropes, if necessary. But in the morning, all had again disappeared, as if swept by a tempest. The ground was bare. Nevertheless, all hands began again, for all hearts were united. For the third time the work proceeded, yet when the sun rose the next morning, there was not even a trace of either material or labour. What was the matter? Had some dragon swallowed everything up? Vortigern again summoned his 12 wise men to meet in council and to inquire concerning the cause of the marvel and to decide what was to be done. After a long deliberation, and while all the workmen and people outside waited for their verdict, the wise men agreed upon a remedy. Now, in ancient times, it was a custom all over the world and among our ancestors that when a new castle or bridge was to be built, they sacrificed a human being. This was done either by walling up the victim while alive or by mixing his or her blood with the cement used in the walls. Often it was a young one, thus chosen by lot, to be sacrificed for the many. The idea was not only to ward off the anger of the spirits of the air or to appease the dragons underground, but also to make the workmen do their best work faithfully so that the foundation should be sure and the edifice withstand the storm, the wind, and the earthquake shocks. So nobody was surprised or raised eyebrows or shook his or her head or pursed up lips when the king announced that the wise men had declared and it must be done quickly. Nevertheless, many a mother hugged her darling more closely to her bosom, and fathers feared for their sons or daughters, lest one of these, their own, should be chosen as the victim to be slain. King Vortigern had the long horn blown for perfect silence, and then he spoke. A child who must be found, who was born without a father. He must be brought here and solemnly put to end. Then his blood will be sprinkled on the ground, and the citadel will be built securely. They were dispatched in search of a boy without a father, and a large reward was promised to the young man or woman who found what was wanted. So in every part of the Cymric land the searchers went. One messenger noticed some boys playing ball. 2 of them were quarrelling. Coming near, he heard one say to the other, "Oh, you boy without a father, nothing good will ever happen to you." "This must be the one looked for," said the royal messenger to himself. So he went up to the boy who had been thus twitted and spoke to him thus. "Don't mind what he says." Then he prophesied great things if he would go along with him. The boy was only too glad to go, and the next day the lad was brought before King Vortigern. The workmen and their wives and children, numbering thousands, had assembled for the solemn ceremony of dedicating the ground by shedding the boy's blood. In strained attention, the people held their breath. The boy asked the king, "Why have your servants brought me to this place?" When the sovereign told him the reason, the boy asked, "Who instructed you to do this?" "My wise men told me to do so, and even the sovereign of the land obeys his wise counselors." "Order them to come to me, your majesty," pleaded the boy. When the wise men appeared, the boy, in respectful manner, inquired of them thus, "How was the secret of my life revealed to you? Please speak freely and declare who it was that discovered me to you." Turning to the king, the boy added, "Pardon my boldness, your majesty. I soon shall reveal the whole matter to you. But first, I wish to question your advisors. I want them to tell you what is the real cause, and reveal, if they can, what is hidden here underneath the ground." But the wise men were confounded. They could not tell and fully confess their ignorance. The boy then said, "There is a pool of water down below. Please order your men to dig for it." At once, spades were plied by strong hands, and in a few minutes the workmen saw their faces reflected, as in a looking-glass. There was a pool of clear water there. Turning to the wise men, the boy asked before all, "Now, tell me, What is in the pool?" As ignorant as before, and now thoroughly ashamed, the wise men were silent. "Your Majesty, I can tell you, even if these men cannot. There are 2 vases in the pool." 2 brave men leapt into the pool. They felt around and brought up 2 vases, as the boy had said. Again, the lad put a question to the wise men. "What is in these vases?" Once more, those who professed to know the secrets of the world, even to the demanding of a life of a human being, held their tongues. "There is a tent in them," said the boy. "Separate them, and you will find it so." By the king's command, a soldier thrust in his hand and found a folded tent. Again, while all wondered, the boy was in command of the situation. Everything seemed so reasonable that all were prompt and alert to serve him. What a splendid chief and general he would make to lead us against our enemies, the long knives, whispered one soldier to another. "What is in the tent?" asked the boy of the wise men. Not one of the 12 knew what to say, and there was an almost painful silence. "I will tell you, Your Majesty, and all hear what is in this tent. There are 2 serpents, one white and one red. Unfold the tent." With such a leader, no soldier was afraid, nor did a single person in the crowd draw back. 2 stalwart fellows stepped forward to open the tents. By now, a few of the men and many of the women shrank back, while those that had babies or little folk snatched up their children, fearing lest the poisonous snakes might wriggle towards them. The 2 serpents were coiled up and asleep, but they soon showed signs of waking, and their fiery, lidless eyes glared at the people. "Now, Your Majesty and all here, be you the witnesses of what will happen. Let the king and wise men look in the tent." At this moment the serpents stretched themselves out at full length, while all fell back, giving them a wide circle to struggle in. Then they reared their heads, with their glittering eyes flashing fire. They began to struggle with each other. The white one rose up first and threw the red one down in the middle of the arena, and then pursued him to the edge of the round space. 3 times did the white serpent gain victory over the red one. But while the white serpent seemed to be gloating over the other for the final onset, the red one, gathering strength, raised its head and struck at the other. The struggle went on for several minutes, but in the end, the red serpent overcame the white, driving it first out of the circle, then from the tent and into the pool, where it disappeared, while the victorious red one moved into the tent again. When the tent flap was opened for all to see, nothing was visible except a red dragon, for the victorious serpent had turned into this great creature, which combined in one new form the body and the powers of bird, beast, reptile, and fish. It had wings to fly, the strongest of animal strength, and could crawl and swim and live in either water or air or on the earth as it pleased. In its body was the sum total of all life. Then, in the presence of all the assembly, the youth turned to the wise men to explain the meaning of what had happened, but not a word did they speak. In fact, their faces were full of shame before the great crowd. "Now, Your Majesty, let me reveal to you the meaning of this mystery." "Speak on," said the king, gratefully. "This pool is the emblem of the world, and the tent is that of your kingdom. The 2 serpents are the 2 dragons, The white serpent is the dragon of the Saxons, who now occupy several of the provinces and districts of Britain and from sea to sea. And when they invade our soil, our people will finally drive them back and hold fast forever the beloved Cumbric land. But you must choose another site on which to erect your castle. After this, whenever a castle was to be built, no more human victims were doomed to their end. All the 12 men who had wanted to keep up the cruel custom were treated as deceivers of the people. By the king's orders, they were all put to their end and buried before all the crowd. Today, like so many who keep alive the old and worn-out notions by means of deception and falsehood, these men are remembered only by the 12 mounds which rise on the surface of the field hard by. As for the boy, he became a great magician, or, as we in our age would call him, a man of science and wisdom, named Merlin. He lived long on the mountain, but when he went away with a friend, he placed all his treasures in a golden cauldron and hid them in a cave. He rolled a great stone over its mouth, and then, with sword and earth, he covered it all over so as to hide it from view. His purpose was to leave this, his wealth, for a leader who, in some future generation, would use it for the benefit of his country when most needed. This special person will be a youth with yellow hair and blue eyes, and when he comes to Dinas, a bell will ring to invite him into the cave. The moment his foot is over the place, the stone of entrance will open of its own accord. Anyone else would be considered an intruder, and it would not be possible for him to carry away the treasure. The end.
The story has ended, but your dreams are just beginning. Let them carry you gently through stars and silence and soft wonder. Thank you for letting me read to you. I'll be here again whenever you need a quiet voice and a gentle tale. Sleep well, sleep deep, and good night, dear dreamer. Breuddwydion melys, dear dreamer, sweet